Hello viewers, subscribers, friends. Namaskar. Everyone is using power, energy and paying for it as electricity bill. Power comes to our houses, machines, factories, hospitals, transport system, etc. from electricity generating stations. Such electricity generating stations may be using non-renewable source of energy and renewable source of energy for generating power. Non-renewable source includes thermal power like coal, gas, lignite, liquid fuels, etc. Renewable sources includes hydro, solar, biomass, biofuel, urban and municipal wastes, and such other recognized sources as determined by the government. But have we ever gone seriously to know how tariff for power generating stations are fixed, which are ultimately charged to consumers in retail or bulk? Let us come to know something about this. As the sources of power are different, as we just discussed, the determination of tariff, process and formulation are also different for the generating stations. Electricity Act 2003 was enacted in the year 2003. The Act provides for constitution of commission known as Central Electricity Regulatory Commission, CERC in short, for determination of tariff and its terms and condition. The commission issues regulations for determination of tariff. As we have discussed, the sources of power oblique energy are broadly two types, that is non-renewable and renewable. So the regulations for determination of tariffs for non-renewable and renewable are issued separately with their terms and conditions. Here we can see that we have a set of regulations. One is the Central Electricity Regulatory Commission Terms and Condition of Tariff Regulation, CERC Regulation 2024-2029, and another is the Central Electricity Regulatory Commission Terms and Condition of Tariff Determination from Renewable Energy Sources Regulation, CERC Regulation 2024 to 2027. The first one broadly covers the regulations for thermal, hydro and transmission of power, just such as transmission utilities, and another one covering the small hydro, wind, solar, including its integration with combined cycle, biomass, biofuel cogeneration, urban and municipal waste, and such other sources as recognized or approved by central government. But friends, you must have noted that we have some contradictory statements regarding hydro. One at one place we are telling that hydro is a renewable source of energy, and we are separating the regulations in two different regulations. One is under the first one and also in the second one. But we must know that in the second one only small hydro is covered. The hydro generating stations for the regulations are covered under the first one, that is under the terms and condition of tariff regulations. This first type of regulation is issued for the term of 5 years, and the second one is issued for the period of 3 years. For after every 5 years, the regulations are amended or modified by the CERC. Now we can see that CRC regulations are applies to all cases where tariff for a generating stations or a unit thereof and a transmission system or an element thereof. But it shall not apply in following two cases. Number one, generating stations or transmission systems whose tariff has been discovered through tariff-based competitive bidding in accordance with the guideline issued by the central government and adopted by the commission thus under the said Electricity Act 2003. And in second case, where generating station based on renewable energy sources whose tariff is determined in accordance with the CRC regulation, just before we have discussed it. In this video, our nature of discussion will be the determination of tariff for hydro generating station. and which is regulated by the regulations, the Central Electricity Regulatory Commission Terms and Conditions for Tariff Regulation CERC Regulation 2024 to 2029, and which is effective with effect from 1/4/2024. This was a little prelude about the determination of tariff. Now we should move towards our main focus regarding how the tariff is determined. Tariff in respect of generating station wherever applicable may be determined for whole of the generating station or unit thereof. The component which is mainly considered for determination of tariff is capital cost, and therefore in the case of multi-purpose hydro schemes with irrigation, flood control and power component, capital cost chargeable to the power component only is considered for determination of tariff. Hence, we have seen that in the multi-purpose hydro schemes, we are considering only the component which is chargeable under the capital cost for the power component only. Now, the first thing the company, I mean to say generating stations are required to do is that they has to at first file an application before the CERC for determination of tariff. This application generating company may file within 90 days from the actual date of commercial operation. What is actual date of commercial operation? It is in small known as COD, and it can be determined for a unit and for a complete generating station. In relation to unit, the COD means date declared by the generator after demonstrating the maximum continuous rating or installed capacity through a successful trial run after notice to the beneficiary. Generally, for the hydro generating station, it is considered for installed capacity rather than MCR. And in relation to generating stations, the date of commercial operation means the date of commercial operation of the last unit of the generating station. Now, we have discussed here regarding installed capacity. Now, we must know what is installed capacity. Installed capacity, which is in small known as IC, it is a summation of capacities of all the units of the generating station, or the capacity of the generating station reckoned at the generator terminal. Sometimes power are injected into the grid before the COD, that means commercial date of operation. That power is known as informed power. Informed power is the electricity generated into the grid prior to the date of commercial operations of the unit of the generating station in accordance with the regulation CERC IEGC regulation 2023. Here CERC IEGC regulation 2023 is known as Central Electricity Regulatory Commission Indian Electricity Grid Code Regulation. Now we come to the point, what is the tariff structure for hydro generating stations? It constitutes of two things. One is capacity charge and another is energy charge. These all are given in regulations 65, and for the 66 regulation it is for the pump storage projects. But here we are the main concern about the other than the pump storage projects. Tariff structure comprise of two important components, that is capacity charge and energy charge. Capacity charge is derived on the basis of AFC, and that constitutes of return on equity, interest on loan capital, depreciation, interest on working capital, and O&M expenses. These are the five components which determine the AFC. annual fixed cost. We must keep in mind all through the discussion that the tariff is determined basically on the capital cost chargeable to the power component. For hydrogenerating station, the AFC is importantly derived for both capacity charge and energy charge as at the weightage of 50% each. However, this is not in the condition of thermal generating stations where energy charge is determined on the basis of consumption and cost of fuel. So, in hydrogenerating stations, we must concentrate over this AFC charge, which has the 50% weightage for both the consideration of capacity charge and the energy charges. Hence, for the hydrogenerating stations, AFC is more important. One thing I must say here that our discussion will give you broader outlook of how tariffs are determined. However, every step and aspect of the determination of tariff is having numerous intricacies and require professional expertise to go by the regulations, filing the application for tariff, determination of tariff, and both for the existing and the new stations, truing up and prudential check of the claims. Now, for the return of or return on equity and interest on loan and capital, we must know the regulations regarding the loan and the equity. For the capital structure, the debt and equity ratio is given as 70 is to 30. That means debt should be 70% of the capital structure, capital cost of the company, capital cost of the generating station, and 30% is equity given by the company. It is determined as on the date of commercial operation. If equity actually deployed is more than 30% of the capital cost, equity in excess of the 30% shall be treated as normative loan. Normative loan means the loan which is determined by the norms. As we have seen that for determination of annual fixed cost, one of the component is return on equity. For the existing projects, the return of equity, the return on equity for run of the river project is 15.5% of the capital invested, and for the purpose of storage, PSP, and run of the river pondage project is 16.5% of the invested capital. Similarly, for the new projects, it is 15.5% for the run of the river projects and 17% for the storage, PSP, and run of the river pondage projects. But here, one thing is important to note that where there is a requirement to put FGMO, free governor mode operations, data telemetries, communication system, if these facilities has not been there, 1% of the return on equity will be 1% of rate of return will be reduced. Here FGMO means a crucial power system control where a generator's load automatically adjusts, that is increases when frequency drops and decreases when it rises to help stabilize grid frequency mandated as per the regulations of CERC. Hence, this facility, if not available, then there will be the reduction in the rate of return on equity by 1%. Then, our next component for the fixation of AFC is the interest on loan capital. The rate of interest shall be the weighted average rate of interest. That means sometimes it happens that when there is small loan, then the rate of interest is high, and when the amount is larger, then the rate of interest is comparatively lower. Hence, the weighted average rate of interest is required to be determined for the purpose of interest on loan. Then the interest on loan shall be calculated on normative average loan of the year by applying weighted average rate of interest. We have just discussed it. The repayment of each of the year for the tariff period shall be determined to be equal to the depreciation allowed for the corresponding year. Here we have one another component, that is depreciation, computed from the date of commissioning. The depreciation is chargeable from first year of the commercial operation, and for the purpose of depreciation there is salvage value for the assets of the company or the generating station. The depreciation should not go lesser than the salvage value, and that is maximum salvage. The maximum depreciation is 90% of the capital cost of the asset. But in the case of IT equipments, it is 100% depreciation. That is, there shall be no salvage value. Land other than other land lease and land for the reservoir is not to be depreciated. Now we will see how depreciation is computed. First of all, we already know that depreciation is calculated from the date of operation, commercial operation. Secondly, it shall be calculated annually, that is, as on 31st March at the end of the financial year. Third, it shall be calculated in the straight line method at the rate specified in the regulation for the given assets of the generating station. And rate is specified in Appendix 1 of the regulation. Fourth, provided that the remaining depreciation value as on 31st March of the year closing after the period of 12 year for the existing station and 15 year for the new station from the effective date of COD of the generating station shall be spread over the balance useful life of the asset. These are the norms for depreciation calculations after the COD. Coming to the fourth aspect of the AFC, it is interest on working capital. The rate of interest for the working capital shall be considered at the reference rate of the interest. Secondly, interest on working capital shall be payable on a normative basis. That means there is a norm fixed for this purpose. Working capital shall cover receivable equivalent to 45 days of annual fixed cost, maintenance spare at the rate 15% of O&M expenses, including security expenses, and O&M expenses, including security expenses for 1 month. These are the purpose of interest on working capital. Now we move on to the fifth and final component deriving the AFC for the purpose of capacity charges and energy charges. The CRC regulation stipulates that for the hydro generating stations which have completed 3 or more years as on 1st April 2024, it will be as specified in CRC regulations. There is a table in Regulation 36, Sub-Regulation 2 of the CRC, which provides the O&M expenses for such generating stations. The O&M expenses is given for the financial year 24-25, 25-26, 26-27, 27-28, and 29-28-29. For the hydrogenerating stations for which declared commercial date of operation is on or after 1st of the April 2024, for the first year, the the O&M expenses will be at the rate of 3.5% for the projects for the power stations which is more than 200 megawatt, and it will be 5% for the generating stations which is less than 200 megawatt of the original project cost, excluding the cost of R&R, IDC and IEDC, and shall be subject to the annual escalation of 5.4% per annum for the subsequent year. For the first year, the rate is given, and for the year later to the first year, there will be escalation of 5.47% per annum for the subsequent years. Here, IDC stands for interest during construction, and IEDC stands for incidental expenditure during construction. Then the hydrogenerating station which have not completed a period of 3 years as on 1st April 2024, O&M expenses for 24-25, that is financial year 24-25, shall be worked out by applying an escalation rate of 5.47% on the applicable O&M expenses as on 31st March 2024. For subsequent year, the tariff period shall be worked out by applying an escalation rate of 5.47 per annum. There are some more components which are included under O&M expenses. These are the security expenses, capital spare, and insurance expenses. Value of capital spares exceeding 10 lakhs shall only be considered for reimbursement. Impact of subsequent legislation, that is, when any act or legislation or regulation is changed and it is applied from the date of its application, which includes some additional financial burden, that will be considered as a subsequent legislation. And the impact of such subsequent legislation, if it is more than 5% of the normative O&M expenses per year, then it will be considered another O&M expenses. And impact on account of implementation of wage or pay revision. When the wage revision or pay is revised for the employees of the company, employees of the power station, then it will be considered as the O&M expenses of the company. Now, for the purpose of AFC, we should keep following thing in our mind. First, the annual fixed cost is computed on annual basis. Then, recoverable on monthly basis under capacity charge and energy charge, payable by the beneficiary in proportion to their respective allocation in saleable capacity of the generating station. That means the free power to the home state is subtracted from the actual generation or production of electricity, so that which can be sold to the beneficiaries. Secondly, the formula for the computation of capacity charge for hydrogenerating station is AFC multiplied by 0.5, that is 50% weightage has been given here for the purpose of capacity charge of the AFC, multiplied by number of days in a month, number of days in a year, plant availability factor for the month, and normative plant availability factor in percentage. We put all this data in the formula like this, and the capacity charge will be decided. The norms of the plant availability factor as given in the regulation is as below. For the different type of plants that has a reservoir or run of the river, it is like this. Storage and pondage type plants with head variation between full reservoir level and MDDL of up to 8% and where plant availability is not affected by silt, that is 90%. In case of storage and pondage type plant with head variation between full reservoir level and MDDL is more than 8% and when plant availability is not affected by silt, the month-wise peaking capability as provided by the project authorities in the DPR shall be the basis of NAPAF that is mentioned in the DPR. Then pondage type plant where plant availability is significantly affected by silt, it is 85% as per the norms. Run of the river generating station and PAF, that means normative plant availability factor, to be determined plant wise based on 10 days design energy data moderated by past experience where available or relevant. Further, there is an allowance made by the Commission in normative plant availability factor for the special circumstances where abnormal silt problem is there or other operating conditions which affects the limitations or affects the plant availability factor. Further, for the northeastern region, there is allowance of 5% which is allowed for the difficulties in that region. These are the norms in the regulation itself. Hence, we have to follow these norms while calculating the capacity charges in the and applying in the formula. While calculating the capacity charge, we have two terms there, NAPAF and another was PAFM, that is plant availability factor for the month. Already we have discussed about the normative plant availability factor, that is NAPF. Now, the PAFM, that is plant availability factor for the month, shall be determined by the formula this one, where the 1000 multiplied by summations of ith day to the nth day, number of days in the month, and declared capacity for the particular day divided by number of days in the month multiplied by installed capacity multiplied by 100 minus auxiliary energy consumption. This auxiliary energy consumption is based on the norms given in the regulation that we call as normative auxiliary energy consumption. Then the normative auxiliary consumption given in the regulation is for the two type of, that is for the surface stations and the underground stations. These are the auxiliary energy consumptions which is already given for the projects power stations which is above 200 megawatt and uh, up to 200 megawatt. These are the factors which are put into the formula for deciding the capacity factors. Now we have reached almost at the last of the calculative part, that is, it is the computation of energy charge for the hydro generating stations. Energy charge shall be payable by the every beneficiary for the total energy scheduled to be supplied to the beneficiary, excluding free energy to the home state, if any, during the calendar month on the X bus basis at the computed energy charge rate. This energy charge rate ECR is calculated by the formula. Here we apply again AFC where weightage is given for 50%. We have given 50% weightage at the capacity charge calculation, and for the ECR purpose energy charge rate we are applying again AFC annual fixed cost with the weightage of 50% multiplied by 10 divided by design energy multiplied by 100 minus auxiliary consumption of energy and multiplied by 100 minus free energy to home state. This is the formula for the purpose of ECR and which is applied in this formula for calculating the energy charges. These two components, energy charges and the capacity charge already calculated, determine the complete tariff for the power generating station in hydro companies. Apart from this, there is also a provision for the incentive, we are going to discuss now. Apart from the tariff calculated by now on the basis of capacity charge and energy charge, as per the AFC annual fixed cost, the hydropower generating stations can earn incentive if the average monthly frequency response performance is more than 30%. When beta is greater than 30%. Beta is what? Average monthly frequency response performance. Formula for the calculation of incentive is 3% multiplied by beta, that is average monthly frequency response performance, multiplied by capacity charge of the year, divided by 12, because it is billed monthly. That's why it is divided by 12. This is the total tariff which the hydro generating power stations can get as a capacity charge plus energy charge and incentive when earned by these formulas. I hope so, friends, that you must have some awareness with regard to the calculation of and computation of tariff for the hydro generating stations. If you have any query, you can write to us in the comment box so that we could answer to you in the appropriate manner. Thank you very much.